You thought you had moved on. You closed your eyes long enough, took a deep breath, carried on. You changed cities, changed your number, maybe even changed your name on the inside. But then, the same kind of pain showed up, in another form, in another body, with a different voice, but speaking the same lies. You're not enough. You'll be abandoned. You'll always be betrayed. And you ask yourself, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I always end up back here, no matter how far I try to run? Carl Jung wouldn't see this as punishment, nor as bad luck. He would see it as a sacred cycle, a symbolic repetition, a mirror of your soul trying to complete a task you always abandon, because the pain you avoid is the teacher you most need to hear. Since childhood, you were taught that some emotions were not welcome. You swallowed your tears, disguised fear with laughter, turned pain into performance. You were trained to survive, but not to feel, not to listen to yourself. And what is unfelt does not disappear. It gets trapped, encapsulated in the body, etched into the unconscious. And as Jung taught, what is not brought to consciousness comes back as fate. You may not remember the original wound, but it remembers you. It shows up in every relationship that makes you feel small, in every project you sabotage before finishing, in every night where you lie down surrounded by screaming silences. This is not bad luck. It's psychic architecture. It's your unconscious sketching lessons with a brush of pain. You are not being haunted. You are being summoned to descend into the territory where the ego has no control, where everything you rejected lives. The repressed anger, the unspoken shame, the fear you've rationalized for decades. The returning pain is, in truth, a door, locked with keys made of unshed tears, guarded by sentinels wearing the faces of real people. Your ex, your father, your boss, yourself. But that door is not the end. It is the beginning of the path of integration. Jung didn't believe in linear progress. The psyche doesn't move like a train on tracks. It moves in circles, like planetary orbits, like the cycles of time. That's why you return, again and again. But there's a difference between walking in circles and walking in a spiral. In the spiral, each return takes you deeper, closer to the center, closer to the truth. The pain that comes back isn't repetition. It's deepening. You're not stuck. You're being drawn back, not to trauma, but to your origin, not to the pain, but to the seed of your awakening. You don't need to run from what you feel. You need to listen, with your heart, with your soul, because what hurts today is the voice of something sacred begging to be remembered. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering differently. You keep asking, why do I always end up in the same place? Why do I always attract the same kind of people? Why does it always hurt the same way? The answer is not out there. It's not in the job, the city, the friend group, or the partner. It's inside you. More specifically, inside what you refuse to face. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious is not just a storage room for forgotten memories. It's an active force. It creates patterns. It projects them outward. It manipulates reality to show you what you still refuse to see. So if you feel stuck in a loop, that loop is not random. It's you trying to meet yourself. There's a reason the same wounds keep showing up in different forms. You date someone emotionally unavailable again. You get betrayed by a friend again. You sabotage the opportunity you prayed for again. It's not a curse. It's a reflection. The people you attract are not coincidences. They are messengers. Painful ones, yes, but sacred. They carry fragments of truths you buried. Truths about what you believe you deserve. Truths about how you see love, power, self-worth. Jung called this the process of projection, the unconscious tendency to disown something within us and then meet it in the world. Your fears, your shame, your unprocessed rage. You thought you hid them, but they became the lens through which you see everyone else. And worse, they became the magnet that pulls the same emotional experiences back into your life. Why? Because until you see the pattern clearly, you'll keep calling it fate. And fate will keep showing up until you stop and turn around and look directly into its eyes. Your unconscious is more powerful than you realize. It's not just reacting, it's creating. It curates your perception, filters your experiences, selects which relationships feel familiar, even when familiar means unsafe. That's why you're drawn to the one who wounds you, because they remind you, unconsciously, of someone else who did. The unresolved pain seeks reenactment, not because you want to suffer, but because your psyche is begging for closure, begging for completion. You attract what hurt you, so you can choose something different. Finally, consciously, you didn't choose your trauma, but you choose your repetition. And your repetition is a cry for liberation. You don't want another heartbreak. You want to heal the first one, the one you never got to grieve, the one you pretended didn't shape you, but did. So your unconscious keeps designing tests, keeps attracting teachers wearing painful disguises, until you finally pause, listen, and say, I see the pattern. I remember the original wound. I don't need to repeat this anymore. That's the moment you begin to exit the loop. Stop judging yourself for the patterns you're caught in. They are not proof that you're broken. They're proof that your soul is working, that it's trying relentlessly to bring you home. You see, repetition is not failure. Repetition is the map. It shows you where the pain began. It shows you where the light stopped reaching. It shows you where to dig. When the same emotional injuries happen over and over, you are being handed coordinates. But most people look away. They blame others. They start over. New face, new job, new town, same wound. You cannot outrun your unconscious, but you can learn to walk beside it. This is the alchemy Jung spoke of, turning suffering into self-awareness, turning the unconscious into gold. The gold is never outside of you. It's buried beneath the pain you keep recycling. You don't need to attract different people. You need to become a version of yourself that no longer resonates with those who harm you. That's how the spell breaks. How do you know you're caught in a projection pattern? Here are the signs. You feel like every relationship eventually ends the same way. You alternate between victim and rescuer roles. You're terrified of abandonment, so you chase or run. You tell yourself, I always mess this up. You repeat, I don't deserve better, even silently. Your body reacts with anxiety before your mind understands why. You sense you're reliving something, but can't name what. These are not random emotional storms. They are psychic echoes. The past asking to be felt. The wound asking to be seen. The child within asking to be heard. And when you finally stop, when you finally look inward, you don't just heal, you transform. You realize your pain has a pattern. The pattern has a message. The message has a key. And the key was always inside you. You were taught to be good, to be polite, to be agreeable, to smile through discomfort, to obey without question. But no one told you that everything you rejected about yourself didn't disappear. It simply moved into the shadow. Carl Jung called it the dark side of the psyche, but not because it's evil. It's dark because it's unseen. The shadow is everything you were told not to be, everything you had to repress to survive. The parts of you labeled wrong, shameful, weak, too much. But here's the truth. What you reject inwardly, you will encounter outwardly. That's why your enemies resemble you. That's why your fears were familiar faces. That's why your life keeps drawing you into the same conflict, with different names, different places, same energy. Because what lives in the shadow seeks expression. It doesn't die. It waits. The shadow is not passive. It's alive. It's emotional. It's hungry. It whispers through jealousy. It screams through rage. It sabotages through silence. It cries through projection. And every time you say, I'm not like that, I would never, I can't believe someone could do that, that's often your shadow speaking. Because what we hate in others is often what we haven't met in ourselves. Jung warned, the more you deny the shadow, the blacker and denser it becomes. And when it grows too large to ignore, it doesn't knock. It erupts, a sudden outburst, a breakdown, an affair, an addiction, a deep depression that seems to come from nowhere. These aren't failures. They are collisions between who you pretend to be and who you really are. You were never meant to destroy your shadow. You were meant to integrate it. Integration doesn't mean you act on every dark impulse. It means you listen, you understand, you reclaim, you say, I see you rage. You protected me when I was small. I see you shame. You helped me fit in when I needed love. I see you fear. You kept me alive in rooms where I wasn't safe. This is the sacred work, the hard work, the real work. When you bring light to the shadow, it doesn't vanish. It transforms. It becomes wisdom. It becomes strength. It becomes empathy, not just for others, but for yourself. Suddenly, the parts of you you spent years avoiding become allies, and the world outside begins to shift. Because now you're no longer projecting your shadow onto others. You're carrying it with responsibility. You want to be the hero of your story. But heroes don't escape monsters. They face them. And the greatest monster is the unlived self, the self you abandoned, the self you edited out of your story, the self that holds your creativity, your power, your chaos, your life force. To reclaim your life, you must ascend into yourself. This is a Jungian descent, not into hell, but into wholeness. The cave you fear to enter holds a part of you that is still free. Carl Jung didn't promise comfort. He promised truth. And truth, when you first meet it, is not beautiful. It's uncomfortable. It's destabilizing. It humbles you. But after the storm settles, you look in the mirror and see all of you, the kind and the cruel, the innocent and the cunning, the wounded and the wise. And you no longer flinch. That's power. That's peace. That's freedom. How do you know shadow work is working? You begin to take responsibility instead of blaming. Feel emotions without being ruled by them. Notice repetitive triggers and sit with them instead of escaping. Set boundaries without guilt. Speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. See yourself in your enemies. Forgive your past selves. Feel more whole and less afraid. You don't become perfect. You become real. You're no longer living a performance. You're living in alignment. This is what Jung meant by individuation, the process of becoming yourself. Your whole self, not the version others wanted, not the mask you used to survive, but the truth you were born to embody. And that truth is never one-sided. You are light. You are dark. You are joy. You are rage. You're the fire and the ashes. And when you stop running from that, the real healing begins. We spend our lives avoiding pain. And in doing so, we avoid ourselves. We numb. We scroll. We escape through work, through sex, through substances, through success. Always reaching. Always moving. Never arriving. But what if the pain you've been avoiding is the very place where the transformation begins? What if your pain is not a prison, but a portal? Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the messenger. Pain is the ancient language of your soul, calling you back to what was never resolved. Carl Jung believed that suffering holds sacred potential, not because it feels good, but because it cracks the shell of the ego and forces something deeper to emerge. You don't grow because life gets easier. You grow because it gets harder, and you rise anyway. Jung didn't ask us to avoid suffering. He asked us to make it meaningful. When we give our wounds meaning, they become maps. When we give them a voice, they become medicine. You are not meant to carry your pain forever. You are meant to learn its name, its origin, its lesson. And when you do, the story changes. It stops being "this happened to me" and becomes "this awakened me." Your pain is not shameful. It's sacred. It's the fire that burns away illusion. It's the chisel that breaks the false self. When you face it, you don't break. You break open. You release the parts of you that were never truly you. The people pleaser, the overachiever, the self-doubter, the mass performer. What's left is not broken. What's left is true. Carl Jung called the ultimate goal of inner work individuation, not perfection, not enlightenment, but wholeness. You stop trying to be just good. You start trying to be real. You stop trying to be liked. You start trying to be aligned. You stop asking, what do they want me to be? And instead ask, who was I before the world told me who to become? That's the moment of rebirth. Not dramatic, not loud, but deep. You realize the pain wasn't the punishment. It was the preparation. It prepared you to become someone who sees beyond the mask, someone who forgives without forgetting the lesson, someone who holds space for contradiction in themselves and others, someone who leads not from authority, but from authenticity. And that version of you, it was always there, just buried beneath protection. Your pain is the birthplace of your greatest gift. The one who suffered becomes the one who understands. The one who is silent becomes the one who speaks. The one who is broken becomes the one who heals. You become the lighthouse, not because you were spared the storm, but because you survived it. And now you light the way. This is the transformation Jung pointed to, not a fantasy, not escape, but initiation, through the shadow, through the wound, through the grief, through the fire, through the mirror, and on the other side, you, whole, clear-eyed, rooted, awake. You don't forget the pain. You don't erase it. You honor it. You become the one who can say, yes, I walked through darkness. Yes, I was lost. Yes, I shattered. But I didn't stay there. You return, not as who you were, but as who you were meant to be. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The pain was a portal. The shadow was a teacher. And the path was always within. You've traveled far, not in miles, but in memory, in meaning, in self. You walked back into your wounds. You sat in the silence of your pain. You stared into the eyes of your shadow and did not flinch. That is courage, and that courage will never leave you, because now you know the truth. You were never broken. You were only fragmented. You were never weak. You were simply surviving. You were never lost. You were only asleep. Jung once said, only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. You are a paradox. You are both wounded and wise, both afraid and brave, both human and more than human. And in your darkness, you found light, not in spite of it, but through it, because real light is not soft and shallow. Real light is forged in the fire. It has known the abyss. It has made peace with its scars. That is the kind of light you carry now. So what happens next? You stop chasing completion outside of yourself. You stop blaming life for what your inner world created. You stop hiding from the pain that was always pointing you home. You begin to choose with awareness. You speak with honesty. You love with presence. You listen to the messages inside discomfort. And you no longer run, because you know your triggers are teachers. Your wounds are blueprints. Your past is not a prison. It's a prophecy. And your suffering was a spark that lit the way. This story you're living, it's yours to rewrite. But you don't start on a blank page. You begin here with everything you felt, everything you faced, everything you now know. And you write, this time, I am not abandoning myself. This time, I walk with my shadow, not against it. This time, I am whole. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready. Ready to meet yourself, to reclaim what you denied, to walk forward, eyes open, heart steady. This isn't the end. This is the moment you return to life. Fully awake. If this video reached you, if it stirred something inside you, you're not alone. And you were never meant to carry it all in silence. Let others walk this path too. Share this video. Leave a comment below. What part of you are you reclaiming today? And if you're walking the long road home, subscribe. This channel exists for souls like yours. We go deep. We go dark. We go inward, because that's where truth lives. Until next time, be gentle with your healing. And remember, the pain isn't coming back to hurt you. It's coming back to free you.